Good morning. This is Cecil and Blues. Thank you for joining me for another Final Fantasy XIV video. Today we are looking at Ravana. It is the first trial that you will have access to in Heavensward. This is a story mode primal, so most of the abilities are not too tightly tuned, and it can afford for a few mistakes, although there are several mechanics that are instant kill, so you will want to pay attention to those. As the fight begins, you notice we are in a circular arena with walls. Those will disappear as the fight goes on, so keep an eye on which walls are still standing. Ravana is accessed during the main story, and you have no choice but to access it, and you must complete it to continue the main story. Over the course of the fight, Ravana is going to put up several buffs on himself, and they are easy to lose track of. There's an attack buff, there's a damage reduction buff, and a couple of others that I'm not even certain what they do, but you will notice them up in the buff bar, but they are intermingled with all your debuffs, so it's hard to keep track of them. He will occasionally put this shield up, and most of these abilities have minimal effect. What he is doing right now, Prelude to the Slaughter, he is charging up, and when he completes, he's going to do an AoE centered on himself, so you can just run away. And then you can come back in. In between his slaughters during this first phase, he does these line AoEs. Just find a safe spot, and then the center will be safe. And then he will immediately begin casting Slaughter, which is another point-blank AoE. I'm not sure how it differs from Prelude to the Slaughter, but just go ahead and continue to DPS him while he is charging it up. Back away so that you do not get hit by the damage. And then he will put these black circles on people. You'll want to spread out so that doesn't hit more than one area. And if you aren't targeted by the black circles, try and move to a different section of the map. At the beginning of the fight, it does not do a ton of damage, but he is gaining a stacking debuff, or a stacking buff rather, that is increasing his damage. Once he has completed this, he will go into his charge up for his ultimate move, and these butterflies start coming into the arena. These butterflies will begin casting a spell called Falling Laughter, and if they complete the cast on Falling Laughter, it will call down a sword that will land on the ground, and you'll see one of those come up here in a moment. But what you're going to want to do is make sure to target these butterflies in the order that they spawn. You see me switching here a little too quickly into newly spawned butterflies, and that allows one of the butterflies to get off their spell. There it is. Sword comes down. If 4 swords are summoned, that is pretty much a guaranteed wipe. And the more swords that are summoned, the more damage you take. You'll see what happens here as we progress. I think we only wind up with 1 here, so it does not result in a lot of damage. But if you allow too many of these butterflies to summon down the swords, it will result in the death of your healers and ranged, and then your melee, and then your tanks, or basically anyone with low gear score. On our first attempt of this, we got 4 swords summoned, and it killed everyone except for our tanks. So that's the damage that's done by the swords, and then he follows it up with his ultimate. And as you can see, it did very minimal damage to our party. So that's easily healed through, as long as you don't let too many swords get summoned. One of the first things he's going to do after he comes back is this AoE knockback. Make sure, while you are being suspended in the air and can't do anything else, pay attention to which walls have been knocked down, because if you get knocked back into a place where there is no wall, you will get killed. You will fall off the arena like in Titan. This move, he is targeting a person and shooting a blast of energy at them. Just make sure not to be where he's facing. And I believe he targets only tanks. He summons orbs. Run away from the orbs. Try not to drag them into other people. And again, he's continuing to shoot blasts of energy at the tank. Just make sure not to stand in front of him or you will take massive damage. As you can see, it's a pretty large cone. And once he completes this rotation, okay, he's going to do the knockback again. Once again, just make sure you've got your back face to one of the walls or you will get knocked off the edge. And he is now casting Swift Slaughter. And what he does during Swift Slaughter is he will target, I think, 3 party members. And he's going to dash across the arena to assault them. So move away from those people, and hopefully you won't get hit. But as you can see, he kind of comes from random directions to hit them. And then, again, you have to move to the center of the room to avoid damage from this AoE. And then you have to run out to the edge of the arena to avoid the next AoE. Lots of don't stand in the bad going on in the second phase of this fight. And now he's casting Slaughter. And I actually said earlier I didn't know the difference between Prelude to the Slaughter and Slaughter. I now recognize what it is. In Slaughter, he targets a couple of players, and he's going to throw blasts of energy at them. So, like, I move over here to try and avoid damage, but I stood right in his path of attack. So, it didn't do a ton of damage, so it's not terrible. Again, purple circles. I did not move away from the person who has the purple circle on it. And as you can see, that did a significant amount of damage. That's the effect of the damage bonus that Ravana has been picking up over the course of the fight. We return for another... also, Ravana has a cleave. It's a very obvious cleave. Don't stand in front of Ravana where the tank is standing if you don't want to get hit with it. We are approaching the end of the fight, and it's a good time for me to remind you again that Ravana puts up random buffs on himself. Damage increasing buffs and damage reduction buffs. And very shortly, our Dragoon is about to learn why you shouldn't limit break when the damage reduction buff is on. So that's still a little ways off. I think he waits until we get another knockback. But think of what Ravana does as stages. So, like, right now, Ravana is doing his tank assault phases, and that's going to involve the knockback occasionally. It's going to involve the blasts of energy. So just watch your positioning. Make sure you're always keeping your back to one of the walls so that if the knockback happens when you aren't paying attention, that you don't get killed. Oh, okay, those shields that pop up. Sometimes a round disc will appear on 2 flanks of Ravana, either on his sides or on his back and his front. That effect requires you to not attack him from that direction, or else you will get counterattacked and knocked back. In this version of the fight, that knockback is not so bad as to knock you off the platform, but that feels like the sort of mechanic that is going to be dangerous later on at max level. But just try not to attack him when he puts the shield up. That's not the big round shield. The big round shield is just a damage reduction as far as I can tell. But when he puts the little discs that appear on 2 of his sides, don't attack him from those directions for a little while. Now, our Dragoon is about to learn why not to limit break him. Watch his health. Yup. Don't limit break him when he's got his shield up. It's a little icon that is hard to see. It's like a half and half shield. It's like orange and blue. Wait until it switches to the attack buff, which it is right now. That way, it will not mitigate the entire damage of your limit break. But, again, because we're not, this is a leveling dungeon, it's not super tightly tuned, just make sure you're avoiding the key mechanics. Make sure you're killing your butterflies as quickly as possible. Make sure you're not getting knocked off the platform. And you should be able to clear this without too much trouble. If the fight goes on too long, it goes on too long. The stacking debuff doesn't seem to result in instant deaths of tanks, but if your tank is low gear, you may need to finish this quickly to avoid them just getting completely murdered. But that is the conclusion of the fight. I thank you for tuning in. I hope this guide was helpful. I realized that, you know, I'm kind of like a stream of consciousness trying to come up with all of the encounter mechanics. But thank you again for tuning in. If you did enjoy the video, please hit the like button. You can subscribe to the channel to get more Final Fantasy videos in the future. And if you'd like, you can follow me on Twitter. I will leave you with this embarrassing result of our first attempt where we did not know what to do with the butterflies. This is what happens if you let 4 swords be summoned.